All right.
Take it away, Tameka.
Thank you. So yes, looking at this provision, I know we wanted to go through the different appropriations that were outlined in this bill. There's much more than just what is at the what is called Section 5, which really is about the debt repayment. So I'm going to start at the top here and just walk through some of the appropriate areas for this this provision. And 1006 really has opportunities for more than just debt relief payments. And so one of the first things that jumped out to me was this not less than 5% will be spent on providing outreach, mediation, financial training, capacity building, training for cooperative support, technical assistance on issues concerning food and agriculture, agricultural credit, agricultural extension, rural development, and nutritional and socially disadvantaged farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners, and other members of socially disadvantaged groups. So, in looking at this provision, I really think this leads to a great opportunity for those who are already providing outreach services or thinking about providing outreach services that touch on any of these topics. What is not clear right now, and I know myself and John have had several conversations with extension arms and trying to understand, well, where is it or when will these opportunities be kind of set forth for organizations to begin to apply for these opportunities. John, I don't know if you have any updates on that, but one of the things that really makes sense to me is as these things come through appropriations, typically how these are farmed out are through normally through grant programs or contract programs, but certainly always managed by some arm within USDA. So one of the things that this group or Legacy Farming and Health Group has been doing is just exploring how we can leverage what we're currently doing and then be able to position ourselves to support and tap into these resources that we know will be coming up and being available for most groups and most organizations. I know some of the things that John has asked us to do is kind of look at what that could mean. I've kind of thought about recommendations for setting up cooperative farming groups, which is certainly what we have going here, is a group that's talking about bringing together multiple groups and organizations to work together to collectively do this outreach. Rural development is another area that I really think has great potential, because rural development normally is run by your county offices throughout USDA, but they're always looking for opportunity for it to be more of a national approach to how these programs are set up and support rural development in communities across the nation. John, some of my thoughts on at least developing those cooperative groups are, that financial capacity. You and your brother TJ talk a lot about this. We all talk a lot about this. Normally, these programs aren't, set aside for us to, at least our farmers, to really tap into them. And I think that there should be something set up outside of what's the normal underwriting process for the USDA for our farmers to tap into the resources, whether that be a bank that
I never wanted to talk to you about that.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir.
Signing up with the USDA.
I'm sorry, sir. You broke up a little bit. But could
Don't worry about it, Tameka. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my thoughts are always around that financial either training and capacity building. When we talk about capacity building, that means truly the funds and the resources to grow what you're currently doing. And most times within the departments or arms of the USDA, it's tough. It's a little bit tough to get in your program and the resources, and then they always manage that in such a way that you never know what door to walk into. So John, some of my thoughts have been around how do we either leverage current financial institutions that are, understand our lending needs, understand our financial capacity building needs, and how do we set up a situation where that's being managed typically outside of USDA underwriting, but has some level of approval with respect to kind of that cooperative management within that group. So those funds can be used and capacity building resources can actually be leveraged.
Well, right now, there are, I know at least 2 credit unions that are being established. One's in Chicago, and I'm trying to remember where the second one is being established at, but I know that there's at least 2 of them right now that are trying to be established to be that credit union for our people to be able to get these funds and things of that nature. One of the things that they're trying to push for is for them to be able to receive the funding. So, for example, they're talking about not less than 5%. You know, a lot of people just look at the 5%, but it says not less than 5%. And so it could be more than 5%. As I mentioned in the webinar I did last week, you know, we're 14%, so we should be able to receive at least that much. Otherwise, that's considered taxation without representation. And so, but those are the mechanisms that they're trying to put into play, that we need to have into play in order to have the money already set aside. Now, they may still have some stipulations and things of that nature as to approving who gets the money. But our thing is to have the money set aside already for our people. We'll work through the process of getting it. The issue that we've had in the past is that they get to hold the money, and then as they play around with trying to divvy it out, it becomes one of those things where it just gets lost in the loop. And then you have people that come in and want to build walls and stuff, and then they want to take all this extra money that's still sitting out there that nobody uses. Well, if they put it into our credit unions, they're going to make sure that money is being used, and it's not just going to sit there as money just sitting there. So that's the importance of that. So let me digress and let you take back over.
No, I agree. And one of the other things that really jumped out to me here is rural development. This is when I see these terms, right, and financial training and rural development, really what rural development, is infrastructure building and job creation, right? That's the quietest is kept secret about portions of USDA that really where a lot of the money and the funding sits. It is infrastructure building and job creation. So when I see rural development, I really think there's an opportunity for organizations, cooperatives, to put together real infrastructure plans that have the capacity to create jobs in our community, and then to have that funded by these dollars. So,
and let me say this about rural development. Rural development, it doesn't always have to be what we consider rural. It's also considered to be rural and urban development. This is where your shopping malls come into play. All the shopping malls that were built back in the 60s and 70s, that was developed through rural and urban development. Your apartments, things of that nature. Most of the time, we don't take it into consideration, but a lot of times those apartments and stuff are made in areas that are considered kind of outside of the city. And that's where they develop those apartments and stuff like that. That's funded through rural and urban development. Your multifamily homes, apartments, things of that nature, that comes through rural and urban development. If you want to build a factory, manufacturing facility, or anything like that, that comes through rural and urban development. So urban development, rural development, there's a lot of money that goes into that, and that can do a lot of things.
Absolutely. And I just think there's a great opportunity there. There's opportunities for organizations like Legacy Farming and Health Group to look at the pockets of area where our teammates exist, and there's opportunity to do development. I even encourage most folks, even outside of this provision, is to look at rural development. There's billions of dollars in community funds over in that portion of USDA. All right, so moving on to provision 2. Oh, actually, I should pause there. I'm sorry. Are there any other thoughts or questions? We want this to be an open discussion, and I don't want to wait till the end, because sometimes coming back and trying to remember what we might say or might want to do towards the end and the first part of those questions gets kind of hard. So any other thoughts and questions on that piece? Open to them here.
So how could that help? You know, if I'm located in the city of Virginia Beach and it lines up with the similar, you know, the similar things that, you know, the rural development, et cetera, things you just said, how could a company capitalize on that? You know, there's billions of dollars and, you know, a lot of that. How could that, I mean, where would a person start?
Yes, no problem. So the first thing I would do is go to USDA Rural Development. I'll kind of share some links here shortly. And then I would first start with a business plan. What are you trying to do? It sounds like, you know, I'll just say, for instance, in your case, Darrell, I know you produce and you manufacture, you know, products for food, value added, right? So the first thing you're probably looking for is a manufacturing facility. And you want to understand, you probably have an approach or a business plan for how much people and how much that manufacturing facility is going to cost. Rural development funds things for that building as well as the equipment. They have direct loans, or they have guaranteed loans that would go under rural development as well. So you would first look at where you want to do it at. The rural development has a website where you can go in, you can put in the address of where you're looking to have this project be developed in, and they will tell you whether or not they consider it rural. I can give you a heads up that most of the things that you think are urban are actually falling under rural. And once you put in that address, it'll tell you, hey, yes, this address qualifies for a rural development program. And then for you, you would probably you want to start by saying, hey, what portions of my project fall under what program? There's community development arms where they're specifically focused on community buildings, right? So that infrastructure piece might fall under the building portion of rural development. And then you're looking at, hey, I have equipment that's necessary for this project. And then there's equipment portions of the loan that you would write up, which would fall under rural development. And based on the type of entity you are, if you're a nonprofit, the direct or grant loans are probably the ones you want to seek. If you're a traditional business, it'll probably be the regular business loan through the rural development to get the project.
So the best thing to do is to contact the USDA. Is that correct?
Yes, you can leverage their resources just to get a foundational understanding of where you want to go with your project. But yes, the best thing to do is say, hey, look at rural development in your local county, and then it'll guide you from there. USDA Rural Development.
Thank you.
You're welcome. No, provision 2 is talking about not using less than 5% of the total amount of funding available to provide grants and loans to improve land access for socially disadvantaged farmers. Kind of reads a lot like the first provision, but this is really more specific to land access. And that is more along the lines of making sure that we have the ability to access these lands and resources through lending providers and or actually understand land searches and Harris property issues. So one of the main things that we've had significant trouble with is the Harris property issue, right? There's property that's amongst multiple family members. It's caused this kind of lack of access to land. So this really is focused on that piece about training and then the funding for getting over these issues with heirs property and land access issues. Some of my feedback on this has been centered around, hey, why aren't we thinking about a grantor program? Again, this kind of leads back to if there's farmer co-ops that are not farmer co-ops, excuse me, but credit unions that are being developed that are out there that we know will have the best interest of our farmers and our people being willing to access this land. We should actually be working with them, partnering with them to develop programs that address issues with heirs property and address issues centered around historical land access issues. So I don't think we reinvent the wheel here. Most of my feedback has been around who's potentially already doing this work, and are there programs that are set up to help break down the barriers that we've traditionally had to overcome to access the lands that we know are out there that either have been taken away historically or that reside in our families, and we're trying to figure out how to divvy up. There should be, I think, targeted funds at those programs to be having more robust outreach across, not just across the southern belt, but also in other regions where we see that as a problem as well, like the Midwest and the West. I don't know, John, if you have any insight over what's being done on some of these land access issues, either through the credit unions or some of the training programs, Southern Cooperative of Farmers. Any thoughts on this provision and how we can leverage it?
Right now, we are probably just as close to figuring this out as they are. I'm sure that they have, things put in place, but nothing is solidified right now. And so, and this is the importance of trying to get into some of those meetings with the secretary and stuff, because we can then help to direct the direction that they need to be in. And so, if there's issues that you guys have, especially when it comes to getting access to the land, when it comes to heirs related property, things of that nature, now is the time to contact them, because they're writing this stuff up. And I will say this, I don't know how true this is what I'm about to say, but I can just testify that I've seen it happen. For example, they came on and had a meeting about the food that they were giving away last year. And I spoke out about the issues on that. They had a 2-day hearing on that. And by the time the week had ended, they had implemented a lot of the things that had been said. In a couple of these hearings that they've had with the secretary on dealing with writing off these loans and stuff that they have for socially disadvantaged farmers. There's been a couple of meetings that they've had, and within a couple of weeks, those things were implemented. So to say that they didn't have this beforehand, I can't say that because, I don't know what they had beforehand, but I will say this, that once it had been mentioned and it had been carried out. So right now is our opportunity to make our voice heard. If there's something that you want to say, it's one thing to come with the problem, but also come with whatever the solution is to that problem, or at least give an idea of how to solve it. And so by doing that, because they're looking for answers also. And so the best I can say is it takes all of us to get in there and get in their ear and let them hear what our issues are. And if anybody wants the names and emails, I will put that in chat. I'm gonna go through my phone and put the 2 individuals in there that you guys can email to and share that information with.
Do you think that there's opportunity to have like a collective action group around this? Does it make sense to, yes, have many voices to elevate kind of the same substantial issues, but are there opportunities to say, hey, we've been working with Southern Cooperative Southern Farmer Cooperative, we've been working with this group, and here's our 10 most recommended. Is that also an option?
Yeah, Yeah, that's very much an option. I mean, they're looking for a collective group effort as they, it's hard for us to sit here and say, every time I turn around, there's Black people. You guys can't find, somebody Black until, something detrimental happens to them. But, they claim that they don't know of any organizations. They don't know of any Black farmers. They can't find any of this information. And so, you know, we can fill that void by coming together and providing that to them. That's what they're looking for. So yeah, we can produce that ourselves. And they may go and try to reinvent the wheel themselves, but if we already present it to them, like I said, don't just come with the problem, come with the solution. So if we're that solution, a collective of individuals and organizations that have come together and discussed these things, then that solves the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So 3 and 4, I will say I didn't have much thought around this one because this was really more about addressing racial equity, bringing together equity commissions to address the racial equity issues within USDA. But I do know that there are organizations out there addressing that. Any thoughts on this one, John? One of the things that really stood out to me is who's already stood up within USDA to address it. Obviously, we've had these historical issues for well over 30, since establishment. I'm just wondering who's out there doing this work already.
One group that I've heard that's out there, they're called the Life Project. And part of what they're doing is trying to make sure that things are being equitably put out there, pointing out the issues that are there. That's who we are, and that's what we're doing, is trying to make sure that information is being put out, and that is I did a webinar, and it just came out, so I just put it on our webpage right before we jumped on here. So if you guys get a chance to see it, I addressed a lot of those things. So and it gives some ideas. Not saying by any ways, form, or fashion that I'm the guru or know-all. I'm sure that all of us coming together, we can be able to come up with a lot more than what I can. But that's who, those are the things that we need to touch in on, is explaining what equity is versus equality. And so, and I did a demonstration on that in the video. That might help everybody else out.
But this also,
I really like that. That was really a good description, to be quite honest. I mean, I had never thought about it in terms of the way that your picture.
Okay.
So the picture was worth definitely 1,000 words on that presentation. So
well, if you give me a second, I might be able to pull that up. Go ahead, Tameka.
No, and this also, to me, when I think about this provision, or when I read this provision, I'm also thinking about within the employment walls as well of USDA, because there's a lot of commissions that they have that we're not represented on. A lot of these commissions and boards within USDA come up with the rules and the policies, the underwriting guidelines for, let's say, your FSA farm loan manager. If we're not at the table, we already know we on the menu, but we, so this also spoke to me about, hey, how are they handling those equity issues within, even on the employment side? Because as you can see in items 4, they're really talking about trying to have a more diverse employment pipeline for USDA federal employees. So this spoke to both of those, equity inside of USDA and equity outside USDA, in order to access those programs and resources. They need to address both, which is why there's always disparity with their policy and program implementation within USDA. And the last 2 to 3 provisions within the 1006 bill is really more suited towards land grants, college and universities. But what it speaks to me is being able to work with these land grants and college universities who will also be receiving some sort of resources in order to improve funding and access within their programs for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So in here, they say they're not going to use, not less than 1% should go towards college and universities that are educational land grant institutions, Native serving institutions and Native Hawaiian serving institutions, Hispanic serving institutions, and National Agricultural Research, Extension, and Teaching Policy institutions. So there's going to be monies that are going to go to these institutions that are going to be responsible for doing this work. And so, one of the things that jumped out to me is, hey, how are we as groups and organizations tapping into the resources that we know that these institutions are going to get in order to do this work? I know we, under the LIFE program, we have a great relationship with our 1890 and other land grant institutions. We work direct with FAMU and CANT, but we want those relationships to grow across all of the organizations that are doing this work. John, I'm sure you mentioned also some other partnerships that we can talk about, or you've mentioned that are on the horizon. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, what it's about right now is the collaboration. And, my thing is that we, where we've tried to position ourselves is a group who partners with other groups, especially our HBCUs, National Black Farmers Association, and COBRA, was it the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, and the Black farmers nationwide. We partner with all of them and try to share our information with them. And so there's quite a few that are coming up. As I share with people, not saying that people can't jump into the ball game right now and be and represent, but when the money's on the table, it's easy to jump in there and say, hey, let's go at it. But we know that the money's not going to always be there. And so the thing is jumping on or really pushing these groups that are there for nothing but the money. When the money dries up, where are they going to be, and what's their commitment going to be at that point in time? So I try to stick with those who have been around for a while, who were around before the money was put on the table. Not saying I won't partner with those who come once the money is there, but definitely try to partner with those who are already there because they're already working. Not someone who's going to, like I said, just come in and swoop up the money and go from there. But there's a ton of organizations that are out there, banks, organizations that are looking forward to working with us right now. After our presentation, there was a major national company that approached us who wants to work with our farmers across the nation. Haven't really had conversation since then. They understand that it was just last Thursday that I had did the presentation. Talked to them on Thursday evening and Friday. Monday was a holiday. Been busy Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. But I'm supposed to be getting back in contact with them within the next couple of days. And but they have a national program that they want to work through us on. So I'm trying to get our people together and be able to approach them on that situation. But these opportunities are there. And our thing is not just for us, but for all of us. This is the purpose of it. We ourselves can't feed everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The point is collaboration and partnerships. So I agree 100%. And then this last point is really centered on the debt relief for African American farmers, which we know is out there now. I know that there's been some efforts to start payments soon. There was an announcement that came out that payments would be should be starting this month, but not less than 5% of the total amount funding will go to provide financial assistance to socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers and forest land owners that are former farm loan borrowers that suffered related adverse actions or past discrimination and biases from the Department of Agricultural programs as determined by the Secretary. John, what some of the things that I have continually gotten questions on is this tiered approach to the debt relief payments. Have we heard any updates to that? Has the Secretary come back and said there'll be no tiered approach to the payments and the payments will just be made? We know there are forms that need to be completed, but any updates on the payments and the tiered payments as advised by the Secretary? I know you've seen in a lot of these meetings.
Yeah, the way I understood it on the last part is that, and I don't think that it's going to be tiered approach the way people understand it or the way people are perceiving it to be said. Apparently, there is a provision through the IRS to where we'll just say that, you know, you had a $1 million loan. Well, them paying off your loans this year, that is going to be considered a $1 million piece of income that you received. And so the tiered approach is not that they're going to pay it off in increments, but it's going to be to where, how do you report that to the IRS? If you report it all right now, all at one time, then that puts you in a higher tax bracket, as opposed to reporting it over a 4-year period and just reporting it as $250,000. And so your tax bracket, and that's the way I understood it, and the way that he had emphasized it the last time that I heard him speak, that was what he was looking at as far as the tiered approach is how you were going to report it. And they were looking at getting financial advisors to come in and advise people just so that they can know what is the best way for them to do it. I'm no financial expert. I try my best not to have to worry about taxes. If I had it my way, I wouldn't even pay taxes, but that's, you know, I got
whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But this is also the reason why they're doing 120%, right? Because that extra 20% of payment is there to support the taxes that you will incur because of the income increase for paying off the loan, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so if anybody knows, it's never happened to me, but you know, as you increase in taxes, or as far as income, your percentage of taxes increase. And so I think that's where they were at this 20%. They're trying to get it to where that's all you'll have to pay at one time. I've heard some people that I've talked to who are into, you know, folks who has a lot of money. Deb said loans are not considered income. Yeah, we're talking about the loan forgiveness. If they forgive the loan, and that is income, you know, if they forgive it, then that's money that is being reported on your taxes as being income. And so that's what the issue is on that. So it's not them giving you a loan, it's them paying off the loans that you have. And so that's part of the issue. I'm not, like I said, a financial tax advisor. But Deb, she knows a little something. So Deb, if you got something that you want to share with us, now would be a great opportunity.
We want this to be collaborative and informative. So Deb, if you have any thoughts on the tax piece and how that's going to help that extra 20% and what people should be considering, we're happy to hear it.
So just a sec.
Oh, she said just a sec. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello,
I'm eating corn chips. Excuse me. I'm done now. You would get something called the 1095C, which is a loan forgiveness document, but there are a number of exceptions to having to claim that, and one of them is if it's a business loan loss.
Okay.
So I would like to do a little more research on this because there's a number of ways where you can exclude that 1095C income.
I agree, but I will say this. You've had lawmakers that have come out to file discrimination lawsuits. You've got banks that have come out and cried foul due to the fact that they paid off these loans for African-American farmers. And I think that the consensus is that whatever way that they can put the screws to us at the same time of doing this, that those who can put the screws to us are going to try to find that way. And so I think that they're just putting in these provisions just in case.
Okay.
So,
I will.
now, and if I can get that 20% and not have to pay, hallelujah.
Yeah, I will post the reasons. Cancellation of qualified farm indebtedness is one exclusion from gross income.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking right at the IRS website.
All right. Well, you know what? We might need
Good accountant.
great
accountant.
Yeah, come on here and share that on our next go round.
Sure. Yeah, if you can think of any other tax related issues that I can cover, I'd be happy to. But
Okay.
yeah, this is a big important one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I've had multiple questions come up about the additional 20 and then what does that mean for tax purposes. Some people have good accountants that answer those questions for them, but anything that can help to give a general overview, I know this team will appreciate it, and anyone else who will watch this after the recording will appreciate it.
Yeah.
So those are pretty much the provisions from 1006. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. John, thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of go over these. It's really just a walkthrough of what is actually in the provision. There's several 1 through 5 that's available to be funded. The 5th one has worked its way through appropriations, is completely funded, and some payments are beginning to start. But there are other opportunities out there to tap into the resources that USDA or this act is providing for farm development, access to capital and resources, land development. There's so many opportunities, and collaboration, I know we've always talked about here, is the key. Where most of the partners here in the LIFE project are open to that collaboration, open to elevating the voice and the need of our farmers. So it's just really important to know what is actually in the law and what is in this act and what is the plan for that funding to come forth. So that's all I had on the presentation. John, of course, any thoughts or any alibis?
Yeah, I just wanted to share the Gabe had mentioned it, and I pulled it up, and I was just going to share this one screen on what I showed about equality versus equity. And if you guys can see this first screen, it's a segment of 4 different pictures. And the first one talks about equality, and it shows the individuals behind the fence, and you have one guy who is well above the fence. He can see. Equality means they each get the same box. Equity is that, this one, he doesn't really need a box. He can still see without it. The second person, they still need it to be able to see. The third person, he needs two of them to be able to see. Then it points out to what reality is. The first person, here he's got about 7 or 8 boxes. The second person's got the one box, and then the person who needs it the most is dug in the hole. And so, my thing is about liberation. And so remove the barrier that prevents us from having access to what we're looking for. And that's for everybody, not just for, just for the few. That's for everybody. So everybody now has equal access. They have no barriers that prevent them from being participants or a part of it. So you don't need to worry about equality. You don't have to worry about equity, because everybody has the same accessibility. And so, and that's part of what I talked about with that, about the myth of equality that everybody kind of points to and goes to. That was something that I shared in the presentation. And so, like I said, that presentation, I just put it up on the Facebook page. I will be trying to email it out to our group, and I will be getting it to Tameka to put on our webpage. So if you guys have any questions about stuff, a lot of this stuff we will be having on our webpage for people to be able to see and be able to use it for future references. So with that being said, I'm good on everything. I know I talked to Darrell to see if he had anything that he might want to give some input on, but it looks like, did Darrell leave us?
I think he may have dropped out.
Okay.
He typically
Well,
has processing he does towards the evening, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So with that being said, I'll ask Joe. I know you have a lot of input on taxes and stuff. You and I have talked about the tiered approach that they got with the taxes, and I know you said, hey, you're gonna do it all at once. You don't need to have that stuff spread out over years.
Yeah, I chose to do it because I know I have 3 years of remaining depreciation. I have mileage, other non-cash expenses. And so for me, this year I lose my refund. But for those other remaining years I have non-cash expenses, that helps reduce the cash that has to come out of my pocket.
Right.
So I'm going to look at it from that point of view. And also, she mentioned the farm debt forgiveness. I just don't take the IRS website, what they have to say in terms of, gospel. I actually prefer to go back to the actual code and look at the law. And then I go over to a little source where they have court cases or rulings that come out every 2 weeks to every month. And if you're in the audit industry, especially with the big 4 firms, that could get you fired if you don't review those little bi-weekly court case booklets. And so I'm going to go back to the actual code itself, looking up the law, and then work my way backwards. Because I remember my credit union pulled a little fast one, and the IRS said, "Oh, you didn't report $3,000 in debt." And I was like, "What do you mean $3,000 in income?" And it turned out the credit union had forgiven a credit card balance that wasn't paid, but they never told me. And then the other side of that was they still put it on your credit, but they put a little slick game where they charge it off, but they still mark it as late. And as I learned, that's a trick to keep it on your report and keep it active if you don't know the right phraseology to pose your question. Because if it's late, there is no date of last activity, which then kicks in the law of 7 years. You got to remove it.
Right.
So I'll be going back to the law to see what the law says, and then look at any adjustments that might come through the publication, because they mainly train their staff on publications. The attorneys, they're the ones that go to grad school for a master's in taxation, because tax is an accounting issue, not a legal issue. So they go to the graduate school for business to learn about tax law. So, oh yeah, before midnight tonight, I'll know for sure.
All
Bet
right.
you about $1. If I ain't got to give them no money, I can keep that money. And the more I can keep in my pocket, the better I am.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. Joyce Moore, I know you did a lot in that area. Did you have anything you'd like to input on that?
No, not really. I've kind of been listening in. I'm kind of traveling as we go, so I need to kind of go back through everything so that I know what has been said.
Okay. All right. And Deb is saying that she has a JD and something else in taxation. Yeah, LLM in taxation.
Masters and legal masters.
Yeah. So
I got a curveball for everybody. Did you know if you get a loan from the Farm Service Agency, you can't write that interest off?
No.
Didn't know that one, didn't you?
nope.
Jeez. You can't write
Yeah,
the interest off. Ain't that
Yeah,
some
because
mess?
I mean, because the rates are so low.
Yeah.
But here's a curveball I don't think anybody knows. Y'all ready for this one? This one of them kick you in the gut moments. They do not report to the credit bureaus.
Oh, well, shit.
So that doesn't work against you and it don't work for you.
Well, it works for you because, you know, I went to, when I got all my loans for my tractor, my hay equipment, you know, they don't see the additional debt because they're not seeing the income. Because what they'll do is they'll ask you where you're going to sell your cattle, at what sale barn. They will send a letter saying, hey, Joe Tutt has a loan with us. So when he sells his cattle, put our name on the check also. I took one of the drought livestock forage program checks to the bank. And they said, well, we'll cash it this time, but next time you need to have the Farm Service endorse it. So they stopped doing it after so long. But my mentor said, well, go to this barn. And I'm like, why? He said, you'll find out. Well, I went there and it just so happened, I had called them back and said, hey, I'm going to go over here to another sale barn. And I asked them if they had ever received a letter. And they said, oh, we don't know, sir. We received so many letters. So I go out the door and I'm sitting there. I think the person says, you know, I think I saw a letter with his name on it. And she goes digging through the garbage and she was like, yeah, that is him. And so the owner walks in. He was like, we're not doing their job for me. Just throw that crap away. And so what happens when you get your check, it's just your name, not the Farm Service Agency. The reason they do that is to make you bring the check back to them so they can pull their payment out and give you the balance. But you have to be careful. One of our guys in our organization in a county down by me, he took in a check for like 20, 30,000. They took the check and paid off all his loans. And I told him, I said, Ray, you need to file a complaint. If your payment was due and you had, you know, several payments left, only you can make that decision to pay off all your loans. Then the guy, oh, you can apply for another loan. Man, I'd have filed a complaint, a major complaint, because now he had to go borrow more money for other expenses for his farm, fertilizer, seed, cattle feed, buying new heifers, whatever, all because the loan tech chose to take the money and pay off all his loans. But not having on your credit is a big plus. Now, if you're trying to refinance, then it can become a hindrance, because at one point I went to refinance mine because of a drought we had here. And the loan officer was like, well, you know, underwriting, they're having a hard problem understanding how you're trying to refinance something that's not on your credit. So they look at it as though you're trying to get a loan for something that doesn't exist. So they think you're trying to run game on them. And that's when I was like, oh man, I forgot. Yeah, it doesn't appear. It only appears if you default. That's it. And so when you're looking at your debt to income ratio, your income, it makes a big difference. And then so for us, we struggled the first year on the track, well, not on the hay equipment payments, because we always typically paid 2 months or so after we got our hay cut and we sold some hay. With the tractor payments, I always make them with my tax refund. And then the fall payment, we sold more hay. So plus you get the route of depreciation for the equipment and the interest expense. That's the great thing about business. You get the depreciation and the interest expense.
Mhm.
So
Gotta utilize it to your advantage.
yeah, and the only thing I hate about it is putting the house on the ranch, because I lose that $9,000-$10,000 mileage write-off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing I hate is losing that. But the other side of it is I get it back in depreciation on the home.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, with that being said, we got people that has got to go. I know I got to go. I'm sitting here with my son, and he just flagged me and said it's time to do some
Wrap
things.
it up.
So, with that being said, I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you, Tameka, for the presentation that you gave. I appreciate you stepping up the way that you do. And I will talk to everybody later on. I will have this out on our link shortly. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Joe, Joyce, Deb, Gabe, TJ, and whoever else is out there that I didn't get. Oh, MD. All right. Talk to you guys later. Love y'all. Peace.
I have a good weekend.